Hello. So today we're talking about how to determine vertical exaggeration. Vertical exaggeration is used so we can read topographic graphs and we can understand detail in landmass. So if something is more exaggerated, it will have greater detail. But we need to determine how much it's been exaggerated so we know how much, so we know how accurate, we know how to interpret the graph. So vertical exaggeration is determined by this formula. Vertical exaggeration equals vertical scale over horizontal scale. So the first thing we need to do is work out what are the vertical scales and the horizontal scale. So we'll start with the vertical scale. This, as we all know, is the vertical axis. So we know here that it's written in metres, so we're talking in metres, and these units represent 1 centimetre. So we know the vertical scale is 1 centimetre represents 10 metres. So each centimetre we're going up by 10 metres. But to work out this formula we need the units to be the same measurement. So we'll convert these to centimetres. So 1 centimetre, and we know there are 100 centimetres in a metre, so that will be 1,000 centimetres. So we know the vertical scale, now we've got to get the horizontal scale. This one's a bit easier to work out because it's written out for us. 1 centimetre equals 1 kilometre. So each centimetre here is going up by 1 kilometre. So the horizontal scale is 1 centimetre represents 1 kilometre. And like the other scale, we want them to be the same units. So 1 centimetre is, and to determine that, it might be easier to work out a kilometre equals 1,000 metres, and metres contains 100 centimetres. So we're looking at 1 centimetre equals 100,000 centimetres. That's the horizontal scale. So now back to our formula, which is up here. So for the vertical exaggeration is 1 centimetre representing 1,000 centimetres divided by 1 centimetre representing 100,000, centimetres. Another way of writing that would be 1 over 1,000, this is the vertical scale, and 1 over 100,000. Now comes a little bit of the tricky bit. We need to rejig our maths brains and do an invert and multiply. So we'll keep the horizontal scale written as it is, and this is what we want to invert. So we'll multiply and swap the numerator and the denominator over. So to then work out what's going on here, we know we can automatically cross these ones out. So we've got 100,000 over 1,000. We know we can get rid of some of these zeros to make it easier to understand. So there's 3 zeros cancelled out here and 3 zeros cancelled out here. So it's 100 over 1, which is that? Didn't we have 10? 100. So 100 over 1 equals 100. So this scale is exaggerated 100 times.
We move over to demonstration number 2.
So this landmass is exactly the same as the previous landmass, but it's just represented on a different scale, and we're going to work out how much it has been exaggerated. So we know that our formula is vertical exaggeration is the vertical scale over the horizontal scale. So what's our vertical scale? So our vertical scale is 1 centimetre represents, now we've got metres on the vertical axis, and every 1 centimetre is going up by 20 metres. So 1 centimetre represents 20 metres. We have to make the units the same. So we say that there's 100 centimetres in a metre, So our vertical scale is 1 centimetre is 1 centimetre represents 2,000 centimetres. And our horizontal scale is exactly the same as the previous demonstration, so 1 centimetre represents 1 kilometre. And as we saw previously, that means 1 centimetre represents 100,000 centimetres, because there are 1,000 metres in a kilometre and 100 centimetres in a metre. Then we need to calculate our vertical exaggeration. So we do this by putting our vertical scale over our horizontal scale, 100,000, and we write it like this. It's another way of writing it. And we do our invert and multiply trick, which means we're just putting the denominator on top of the numerator. And that equals 100,000 over 2,000. We get rid of our zeros. So we've got 100 divided by 2, which, as we know, equals 50. So the vertical exaggeration of this landmass is 50, which is less than the previous example, and you can see that because the vertical exaggeration of this example is more, this graph is showing more detail of the same landmass. Now we're going to do our last example.
Moving on to demonstration number 3. So as seen earlier in previous demonstrations 1 and 2, the vertical exaggeration equals vertical scale over horizontal scale. So let's look at our vertical scale. So each centimetre as we go up is represented by 100 metres. So 100, 200, 300 and 400. And then as our horizontal axis has been previously, 1 centimetre equals 1 kilometre. First to our vertical scale. So our vertical scale, 1 centimetre is represented by 100 metres, which is written as 1 centimetre. How many centimetres are there in a metre? 100. So that goes to 1,000 centimetres. 10,000 centimetres. And then we need to work out our horizontal scale. So as seen previously, our horizontal scale is 1 centimetre represents 1 kilometre. And that goes into 100,000 centimetres. Now back to our original vertical exaggeration equals vertical scale over horizontal scale, which will be represented by 1 over 10,000. So that's our vertical scale there, over our horizontal scale, which is 1 over 100,000. Now we've got to invert and multiply again, so we'll just come back up to the top of the screen. So our vertical exaggeration equals 1 over 10,000, which is our vertical scale, multiplied by our horizontal scale, which is 1 over 100,000. But we invert it this time. So 100,000 is on top. And that's written as 1 over 10,000, by 100,000 over 1. And we got 4 zeros, we can cancel those out. And we end up with 10 over 1, which means our vertical exaggeration is 10. Sadly, that's all we've got time for today. We look forward to giving back more geographic information next time.